Okay, so this is a little discussion of the Jimi Hendrix All Along the Watchtower. Now, it's really Hendrix's version of Dylan's song All Along the Watchtower. And I want you to hear some Hendrix because he so drastically changed and altered the way that, well, as Dylan did too, the way that music stopped being sort of 2 minute songs that were kind of about, Buddy Holly sort of Betsy Sue got married kind of thing, and become poetic discussions of complex issues, which are, as people would say, cryptic, which means that they can be, they're poetry. Basically, they can be read in a number of different ways. And Hendrix's performance here is an incredibly important part of the thing because he's feeling his way through the music. And again, I'm not a musicologist, so I'm not a rock historian, so I'm not the guy to give you the goods on these kinds of songs. But there's obviously they're very powerful, and the same thing is true with Purple Haze, which is and manic depression for that matter. Maybe I'll put that in. Yeah, we should probably put that in. Okay, I'll do that next. And so here we have again a song which was very much was understood by by men in Vietnam. What you have to remember about, and this is really interesting, one of these interesting technology things, is that portable radios had become miniaturized by the time we get to the late 60s. You could actually have a pocket radio that would have an earpiece that you could an earplug that would put in your ear. It was stereo. It was mono. Like you couldn't get stereo. These were little AM radios, and so they were the sound was absolutely crappy, and it was tinny and so on. And the only way you could, there was sometimes a little speaker on the radio, but they were cheap and they were bad. And the best way to get the best sound was to plug into it, and then you put this little earbud in, basically. And you could afford them. They were, I was given a radio when I was 12, maybe 13, something like that. 12, I think, probably, or 11. Which meant that they were, there was a time when the family had a radio, and especially if it was an FM receiver. That was high end, but these were little AM radios, which meant that the soldiers were carrying radios in their pockets and they were tuning into Armed Forces Vietnam. And they would, which you see, I will show you some clips of that. Yep. I will show you some clips of that. So, there was this huge, the radios were a big deal, which meant that you got guys walking through Vietnam listening to rock music. Now, this is what Hare talks about when he talks about the helicopters. The helicopters also, because they had radios, could play music. So this poem, or this song, particularly because it's Dylan, it's so poetic, there must be some way out of here, said the Joker to the thief, is the sense of we're out of here for the Vietnam veterans or for the men in the field, men out of Vietnam. There had to be some way out. So the Joker to the thief. So the idea is that the whole system is corrupt. Like either it's the Joker, like a Joker. And if you remember in Gustav Hasford's Short Timers novel, which becomes Full Metal Jacket, the film by Stanley Kubrick, which is co-scripted by Kubrick, Hasford, who wrote the novel, and Michael Hare, who writes Dispatches. The main character's name is Joker, and you never know his name. The man whose name you know is Leonard Lawrence, Private Gomer Pyle, who kills himself. Right? But Joker, so there's this sense of corruption, that the only people who are left are jokers and thieves. There's too much confusion. I can't get no leave. Okay, so, and then there's this sort of commentary on the Big Blue Machine. That is, in the IBM, the sort of whole sort of world of establishment, and businessmen, they drink my wine, plowmen dig my earth. It's hard not to begin looking at that as that this is, is this some kind of Christic thing? Is this a biblical? It's going to begin to look biblical, basically. Plowmen dig my earth, as Mother Earth. None will level on the line. Okay, so nobody's telling the truth, and so you go from sort of the business to farming, and where the despolation of the earth, and then to people lying. Nobody offered his word, so nobody is prepared to tell the truth. There are many here among us who feel that life is but a joke, but then the narrator is pushing back from that. He says, but this is not our fate. Let us stop talking falsely now. Well, that's the whole point, is to speak the truth. The hour is getting late. We're running out of time. And again, this sort of a sense of apocalypse. And then we've got all along the watchtower. And the watchtower here is taken quite literally, because there are watchtowers in Vietnam. I mean, they actually built watchtowers, and they watched from them. And so it was like, okay, this is about us. The song was really understood as being about the soldiers. Princes kept the view, so they showed like this. Yeah, we're princes of nothing. Everything was ironic about this sort of very high language, is very high discourse. The princes will be watching. It's like, yeah, princes of squat. Well, all the women came and went, barefoot servants too. So it's this again some sort of reference to an ancient time. Well, outside the cold distance, a wildcat did growl. So there's this, Charlie, quote unquote, Charlie squatting in the woods, growling. Two riders were approaching, and the wind began to howl. Okay, so the two riders were approaching. Is trouble coming, and it's very often an ill omen. I mean, it's the kind of thing that happens at the beginning of the big tragedies, the big Shakespearean tragedies like Hamlet and Macbeth and King Lear and something like that, where, two riders were approaching, and you're like, oh, this is not going to go well. And so there's a lot of ominous stuff in this particular text. And it's very important that Hendrix is a black musician who has very much cuts his own way, and then will die, so very, very young, as a number of them did. But, oh man, it was brutal. He was 20. Well, he was 28, I guess. Terrible.